Welcome to the Office of Aviation Services A200 Aviation Safety Overview for fiscal year 22. This presentation is designed to give an overview of aviation mishaps and our accident prevention program. Here are the topics I'll cover in this overview. I'll define what is an accident and incident with potential, how to report a mishap, some of our safety metrics and accident rates, and the cost of mishaps. The accident review online are now recorded separately. You can review individual accidents that have interest or are relevant to you and your operations. We try to record the reviews as soon as the report is done, since there is usually a lot of interest from the field, and getting the information out in a timely manner is important. As you know, aircraft mishaps are the result of a chain of diverse, connected events that together produce unintended consequences. We investigate to understand and identify those links or contributing factors. By presenting and sharing what we have learned in these mishaps, we can increase awareness in the field, and all of you can be better prepared to identify and break the chains before an accident occurs. Airplane and helicopter accidents are clearly defined by federal code and determined by the National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB investigators are in charge of accident investigations, and generally we are invited to participate as a party to the investigation with aircraft under our operational control. With this party status, we can disseminate information to our organization for the purpose of accident prevention or remedial action. Code of Federal Regulations defines an accident by substantial damage. Substantial damage means damage or failure which adversely affects the structural strength, performance, or flight characteristics of the aircraft, and which would normally require a major repair or replacement of the affected component. Or any person suffers death within 30 days of the accident, or serious injury which requires hospitalization for more than 48 hours, commencing within 7 days from the date of the injury was received, results in a fracture of any bone except simple fractures of fingers, toes, or nose, causes severe hemorrhages, nerve, muscle, or tendon damage, involves any internal organ, or involves second or third degree burns, or any burns affecting more than 5% of the body surface. For a UAS, defined by death or serious injury, or if the UAS has an airworthiness certificate and sustains substantial damage. The federal regulations that define what is an accident also defines what is not an accident. I'm not going to read what they define as what is not an accident, as you can see here on the screen, but what is important is that there is some discretion on defining an accident. The important takeaway is that the NTSB makes that determination. OAS does not. Well, now that you know what the definition of an accident is and the definition of what is not an accident, take a look at the photos and decide for yourself which do you think is an accident? The one on the left or the one on the right? Or maybe they're both accidents, or maybe neither one is an accident. You decide. The Chief of Aviation Safety, Training, Program Evaluation, and Quality Management has the authority to declare an incident with potential. An IWP is a mishap or incident that narrowly misses being defined as an accident, but has significant potential for substantial damage or serious injury. May not have been defined as an accident, but certainly worthy of investigating to determine what contributing factors may have led to the event. For DOI pilots and aircrew flying in a fleet aircraft, if you are involved in an aircraft accident or incident, regardless of damage or injury, or if an overdue aircraft is suspected of being in a mishap, contact the Department of Interior Operations Center at 888-464-7427, or more often known as the 888-4 number, or the OAS Aviation Safety Branch. After these calls, contact your aviation chain of command and let them know that you have contacted the IOC or the OAS Aviation Safety Branch. For contract pilot and aircrew, under the operational control of the Department of Interior, the standard contract language is that the contractor must immediately, and by the most expeditious means available, notify the NTSB and the OAS Aviation Safety Branch when an aircraft accident or reportable incident occurs. For fiscal year 22, there were 2 aircraft accidents and 2 incidents with potential. As we do our investigations, we seem to come up with the same recurring issues, those being mission planning, risk tolerance, training, mishap reporting, managing risk, policy violations, flight following, and supervision. When OAS was established, accident rate was well over 18. Has come down over time. We've made great improvements over time to this last year where the accident rate was 3.72, but as you can see, there's plenty of room for improvement as we continue to make our efforts for operations. If we zoom in on the data and look at the last 12 years, there's really been no significant improvement in the accident rate. Well, getting an accident rate of 0 requires performance involving a culture change and accountability. There's not a critical next step. There is not just one thing that we can do to improve our safety. We have to do everything right from the beginning of the planning phase through the conduct of the aviation operation. 0 accidents is not a lofty goal, but one that we can definitely achieve. Well, nobody plans for an accident. Nobody budgets for it every year either. All of the costs may not be directly out of our budgets. Some of them are on our vendors. But these costs are often passed on to us as increased operating rates, which affect our future operations. And as you can see here, the cost associated with just the mishaps that occurred during fiscal year 22 is close to $1 million. People don't go out with the intention of having an accident, but some may take shortcuts in order to be more productive or efficient. In some cases, they weren't aware of policy or the policy needs to be changed. We're all generally mission focused and want to get the job done. We call this normalized risk tolerance or normalization of deviance. A simple explanation of the term is that at one point, a conscious decision to accept a risk not normally taken leads to trying it again. Well, eventually, the risk-taking behavior becomes standard. A slow creep to accepting risks that were not originally acceptable or even identified can happen to anyone or to an entire organization if it isn't guarded against. Normalization of deviance is a term first coined by sociologist Diane Vaughan when reviewing the Challenger disaster. Vaughan noted that the root cause of the Challenger disaster was related to the repeated choice of NASA officials to fly the space shuttle despite a dangerous design flaw with the O-rings. Vaughan describes this phenomenon as occurring when people within an organization become so insensitive to deviant practice that it no longer feels wrong. Insensitivity occurs insidiously and sometimes over years because disaster does not happen until other critical factors line up. If someone takes a shortcut to be faster or more efficient and nothing bad happens, the process begins. These ingrained shortcuts happen in all parts of our operations or maintenance activities on aircraft or nuisance alarms or cockpit warnings. During our investigations, we identify contributing factors. We use what used to be called the 5M model of management, media, machine, mission, and man, now labeled personnel. These help us identify the areas where the contributing factors fall into. Looking at the chart, you can see most of the contributing factors are in the management and personnel areas. The failures in the management area are sometimes the first link in the accident chain. It is management that sets up the environment or project parameters. These contributing factors, unsafe or inadequate supervision, organizational influences or climate, the tolerance of routine violations, are all the factors that can set up the conditions which can sometimes force pilots, crew members, and other personnel into individual errors. On the right side of the screen, we see the personnel factors, which also represents a significant number of events as well. These factors, such as skill-based errors, decision errors, and unsafe acts, are the last link in the chain, those committed by pilots and crew members. These aren't completely unrelated to the management failures that set up that environment. It is important to note that the human-based contributing factors represent a large number of factors involved with the accidents we investigate. What percentage? About 87%. It's important that our aviation supervisors and leaders are responsible for setting up the right environment. As an aviation user, pilot, or crew member, it is incumbent on you to also recognize if the right environment and conditions are set. If it is not, you need to communicate it back up the chain. We need to have committed leadership, but success will come from employee-driven efforts as well. Earlier, I said that we identify contributing factors, those factors that have a direct effect on the outcome of the mishap. We also identify present but not contributing factors, or issues discovered during the investigation that did not directly impact the outcome, but certainly needs attention. Now, the NTSB is the agency with the authority to assign causal factors. We don't. We need to change or shift in our culture to one of a just culture. We define this as James Reason, famous for his Swiss cheese model, did as an atmosphere of trust in which people are encouraged, even rewarded for providing and reporting essential safety-related information, but in which they are also clear about where the line must be drawn between acceptable and unacceptable behavior. A just culture refers to a way of safety thinking that promotes a questioning attitude, is resistant to complacency, committed to excellence, and promotes both the personal accountability and organizational self-regulation in safety concerns. Well, two important concepts need to remember. One, human error is inevitable. We need to monitor our operations and improve them to accommodate those errors. Two, individuals are accountable for their actions if they knowingly violate safety policies. A just culture is necessary for an organization to effectively monitor the safety of its system by understanding the effects of normal human error on the system and by demonstrating its resolve to enforce accountability. This responsibility includes adherence to safety policies and practices, as well as effective reporting of inadvertent errors that signal an organization to latent safety hazards. Operating as a just culture can create conditions that are conducive to reporting and to collaborative review and solutions that may change policy and procedures. And speaking of reporting, the SafeCom system is our tool for safety reporting. The SafeCom is used to report any condition, observance, act, maintenance problem, or circumstance with personnel or aircraft that has the potential to cause an aviation-related mishap. A SafeCom's sole purpose is for mishap prevention. A SafeCom is not intended to fix blame or to be utilized in disciplinary action against employee or vendor. But just like James Reason defined a just culture, individuals are accountable for their actions if they knowingly violate safety policies. This is the chart that shows the reporting rate and completion rate of SafeComs for the bureaus. The completion rate is the number of SafeComs closed out compared to the total number of SafeComs that are submitted, and the reporting rate compares the number of SafeComs submitted versus the flight hours flown. Both employees and contractors alike are required, but I like to think of it as encouraged to report via the SafeCom system. It's important to note that SafeComs are not used during contract awards. SafeComs are required to be treated separately, as a division is required between information within the SafeCom system and the information that we can pass along to contracting officers and vendors. Here's a quick look at the SafeCom process. It's important to note that SafeComs can be submitted for committable actions as well. SafeComs are not a substitution for on-the-spot corrective action, but should be used as a follow-up. The Aviation Safety Branch at OAS tries to review every SAFECOM within 24 hours of receiving the SAFECOM and works closely with Bureau National Aviation managers on those hazards that pose a significant risk to flight operations. Program evaluations are an essential means of providing feedback related to the operations, process, and outcomes of aviation programs, with a focus on program enhancement. This quality assurance system assesses aviation safety, ensures efficiency, and provides a means for sharing best practices. Here are the top 5 findings for fiscal year 17 through 21 that have been identified by the program evaluators. ALSI inspection and tracking are inadequate. Management plans are out of date. The mishap response plan, usually not tested. The multiple positions, levels, non-compliance with training requirements. And the PASB, not completed correctly. And here are the top best practices that can be used for the findings. One is utilization of tiered management plans as a means of ensuring national, regional, state, and unit aviation management plans are aligned while reducing repetition within multiple documents. ALSI inspection and tracking programs in place, facilitating consistent compliance with ALSI handbook requirements. M3 training included in consolidated management meetings to ensure line managers and supervisors meet OPM4 requirements. Aviation mishap response plan exercised annually to prepare personnel and improve overall responses. And aviation managers and procurement specialists proactive communication regarding in-product, non-fleet to ensure OPM 35 compliance. That concludes the A200 brief. Hopefully you can incorporate some of the lessons learned into your own operations. Think about what you might do if you see similar factors starting to appear. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with your aviation manager or give us a call at the OAS Aviation Safety Branch.